Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by the big man Bakar to preview Gameweek 21. Now Bakar, we are recording this pretty much as late as we possibly feasibly can to get the video out in time for people to watch it and take on your tips and advice. But that means that we have all the information that we could possibly want. It's been a while since the last game week. We're gonna touch on your game week from last week because it was unbelievable. But yeah, the main point is we have all the information now. So you can tell us what we need to be thinking about, which players we need to be thinking about bringing in, captaincy, and also any potential injuries after all the cup games. First of all, how are you? And tell us about your last game week.
Hello, Jack. Hello, and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Thanks for having me. Yeah, last week was great, actually. Last week I got 87 points. I'm just checking. It was my second best game week rank of the season. So I'm going through a very good spell, actually, in FPL right now. I'm just on the cusp of the 150 game, 170 game right now in rank. And yeah, I mean, things have been going well. It was nice to see all the penalty takers that I obsess over do really well. Mbomo, Raul, João Pedro, Eze, Isak, all these guys did really well. And I guess that was the reason why I had a very stellar game week.
I'm just looking at you got 7 returns out of your front 7. Very, very rare. But phenomenal scenes. And
Flekken clean sheet as well. That was very welcome. I mean, I've kept the guy for basically the entire season. He's done next to nothing. But yeah, I think it was his second clean sheet of the season, which he's given for my team. But yeah, I mean, it was a very good week, and I'm looking forward to sort of consolidating my rank in the weeks to come.
So yeah, so game week rank of 300k, as you said. I mean, that is phenomenal. Just tell the people if you did end up making any transfers and how many transfers you have for this week.
So I currently have 2 free transfers. I have 0.7 million in the bank. I'm not exactly sure as to what transfers to make this week. I think there are 2 routes that I can take. Realistically, I think when you look at my team, it doesn't necessarily warrant a transfer. I mean, my starting 11: Flekken, Saliba, Trent, Gabriel, Salah, Mbomo, Palmer, Eze, Raul, João Pedro, Isak. And even if João Pedro is injured, I have Rogers coming in.
Yeah.
So it's a fine 11. I don't necessarily need to go out of my way to make a transfer to. But if I choose to, I think I will bring Bruno in if I choose to. But currently, I'm leaning against it. I'm leaning towards saving the transfer as of now. I say that because A, there isn't anything very exciting that I can do with my team. And B, I mean, if I could get to Bruno in one move, I would consider it to a greater degree. But with 2 free transfers, I don't exactly want to use 2 free transfers to do it. And the third reason, which I think is the most critical, and I think it will apply to a lot of other managers, is that I think even though you mentioned that we're sort of recording at a point where we have the maximum amount of information, I still think there are a lot of things which are still up in the air. For example, we don't know when the Liverpool double will be, if at all, in game week 24 or 25. The results that we've seen in the EFL Cup in particular could now mean that Newcastle and Crystal Palace could blank in game week 29.
Okay.
So, for example, I was considering players like Gordon, Munoz, Hall. I'm not exactly looking at that anymore because I don't want to use my free hit in game week 29. I think navigating game week 29 without the free hit chip is quite manageable. And similarly, let's say if Spurs progress in the cup, there's close to like a 20-25% chance that even Spurs might double in 25 with Fulham. And because a lot of these things are still up in the air and we don't exactly know about the scheduling and the postponements, I think it is wise to have as many free transfers as possible. And looking at the chip strategy from a macro point of view, I do think that transfers will be required for playing the assistant manager later in the season as well. So I just want to be in a position where I can just stack up as many transfers as possible to then be in a position where I can attack the rest of the season with my chips and free transfers. While as of now, yes, I can make a couple of free transfers to perhaps gain short term, but is it worthwhile in the long run? Especially if I'm using 2 free transfers, I'm not so sure. That's where I'm torn. And let's say if this was game week 10 or game week 11 or early on in the season, I think I would have possibly moved to Bruno, but I'm 70-30 leaning towards saving as of now.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes, for some reason that hasn't really ever clicked with me, but it just did when you were saying what you were just saying. that when the assistant manager comes into play, obviously you're still going to have your 15 players that you need to make transfers on anyway, like you would any normal game week. And then you have the assistant manager on top of that. So, yeah, the need for transfers goes up when that assistant manager comes into play. So, yeah, maybe it's wise to hold if you're not entirely sure and roll and then save it for 24 and yeah, later on. I wanna really just ask you about captaincy this week. I think that is still the main discussion point, and I've seen some rumors of certain potential captains that might have their minutes managed. There was some stuff about an Isak knock, perhaps. I'm not sure the legitimacy behind that, but yeah, just in general, if you could go through the popular picks this week and say who you think is going to score the most points.
Yeah, so I mean, this is controversial opinion, but I don't think Salah is among the top 2 or 3 captains this week. So he's not someone I'm realistically considering. The Forest defense has been amazing this season. You look at their underlying data, then the top 5 teams who are actually conceded. They did a job on Liverpool early in the season as well, where they won 1-0 at Anfield. So I'm expecting this to be a relatively close game. Yes, Salah will probably get a return or so, but I'm not expecting this to be a fixture where he goes on and gets, let's say, a 15-pointer or an 18-pointer. I think the ceiling is relatively limited. So I think this is a good week to actually go against the field, because I assume that Salah will be mass captained by the majority of managers. So yeah, I think realistically it's between Palmer, Isak, and Bruno. I think I don't own Bruno, but I think if I did, I think he's a good differential punt against Southampton. I mean, Southampton are just terrible, and you can expect United to do well. I mean, the signs have been positive with United over the previous couple of games. You look at the Arsenal game, the Liverpool game, and the thing is that with Dalot suspended, I think Ahmad will likely play right wing back, and that sort of puts Bruno in the front three as well. So that would mean that he gets, and again with Rashford away with no Mount. I think Bruno is likely to play close to 90 minutes as well. So I think he's a very good captaincy shout for people who own him. That's exactly why I'm tempted to buy him as well, by the way. But I mean, apart from that, I think it's fairly close between Palmer and Bruno, personally. To be very honest, I would have captained Isak over both of them had he been fit. But just that slight doubt over his minutes is enough to put me off, because that means that the risk of him getting subbed early is higher than usual. I obviously expect him to start against Wolves, but just that extra risk of fewer minutes is enough to just put me off. I'll go with Palmer, I think, but it's very close between him and Bruno, and the market odds are very, very similar as well.
Okay, that is interesting. Yeah, so there a little bit, I suppose, of truth behind that Isak rumor, or maybe it doesn't even matter when it is so close like this. And we can see with the predicted points, they haven't really changed from the videos last week over here on the right hand side. They're all still very close. Interestingly, Bruno is still a little bit further down, but that's a good point you make about Dalot. So because he got the red card in the League Cup, was it the FA Cup? I actually don't even remember. It was the FA Cup, wasn't it?
So that was the FA Cup, yeah. So
that carries into the Prem.
That means that he's suspended. Yeah, he's going to be suspended for Southampton. I'm expecting Mazraoui to be the left wing back.
Yeah.
And Ahmad probably to be the right wing back. And yeah, Bruno probably plays front three. Great fixture. And yeah, I still haven't ruled out a move for him.
Okay, well, let's go through your team then, from back to front. Flekken, it's tough fixtures now. Any sort of thinking there of moving him on, or as you said at the top, is it just more like you need to save the free transfers?
I mean, he's been a train wreck to be very honest. I don't exactly like him at all.
He got 6 points last week.
Yeah, I mean, but that was last week, right? Over the course of the season, he's not done much, and expectations were much higher. The thing is, I was actually sort of contemplating selling him for Alisson a few weeks ago, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, because that 1 million that I have spare right now gives me the flexibility to potentially get someone else later if need be. For example, Konate is back in training, so I might get him as my third Liverpool, because I'm looking to sell my double Arsenal defense soon. Not Gabriel. Gabriel is a much bigger goal threat than Saliba, but I think Saliba is the one I'm looking to sell at 6 million with the upcoming fixtures. I mean, yes, Arsenal are in lead defense, but do I really want to be double up on them at this point in time? I don't think so. So yeah, I mean, Saliba to Kanate is maybe something I might do in the times to come. Pickford is someone who stands out as an option. The good thing about Flekken though is that he's going to play in Game Week 29, and I'm also now sort of looking at it from that point of view because I will need a playing keeper in 29. If I get Allison, chances are that Liverpool don't get a fixture in 29, right? So that's the opportunity cost that I'm trying to weigh up in my head.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's then move into your defense and start with, well, you've mentioned already that Saliba could be on his way, but Trent is one that a lot of people were worried about after his performance last game week. But he seemingly backed it up really in playing pretty well
And
over the course of the
with
last
a
8 or 10 days.
I mean, the thing is that he got a 15 pointer against West Ham not too long ago, and then back then he was considered informed. Then he dropped a shitter against United where he got a 0 or 1 pointer, and people were like, his head is turned and he's moving to Madrid. And then he scores in the cup again, scores a banger, and people think that he's fine. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
just the narrative that you build in your head regarding his form and his transfer rumors. I personally think he's fine to keep. Especially, I just think it's with the double rooming, I generally think it's crazy to sell him. So he's definitely a hold. Whether or not he's a buy is tricky because it's sort of tough to be convinced on his minutes, but I do think that he'll start.
Okay, let's move on to the midfield. Palmer, Salah, even Eze, don't really need to talk about them. I think the fixtures are good and they're all in pretty good form. Rogers on the bench is fine as well. And Burmo's one that obviously did so well for you last week. And now you might look at the fixtures and think City at home, Liverpool at home. This is not looking good for him.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're going to be completely fine. And given what you said about not being able to get to Bruno in one move, are you happy just to hold him?
See, this is the tricky part. I mean, I've never exactly been in a position where I had the luxury to sell Mbomo. And to be very honest, you must remember a couple of game weeks ago, I bought Bruno in for his red card. And honestly, as crazy it sounds, it has actually worked in my favor because then it meant that I had to sell Bruno, and that meant that I had to keep Mbomo. I
Yeah.
kept Mbomo for the 19 pointer, and then I sold Bruno for Eze, and Eze has been doing really well ever since. So things have just worked out perfectly for me when it comes to the midfield so far. But yes, I mean, I think Mbomo is personally sellable. I mean, there are two sides of the coin to it. The first side of the argument is that you can say that the fixtures are relatively tough, and I mean, there is an argument to sell him for Bruno because Bruno's fixtures are better in one free transfer. The other side of the coin is that he's been doing well. He's going to tick along with the points, and then in 2 weeks' time, the fixtures will be fine again.
Mm.
And selling a 90-minute man in form on pens seems counterintuitive, especially when you look at the City fixture. I don't exactly look at it as a very hard fixture. I am expecting Brentford to score here. I watched the West Ham game against City, and like City were very, very open. So I'm
Yeah.
expecting Brentford to get plenty of chances, especially considering that it's at home, and Brian will be playing in the front too, right? So that's going to be something which will probably sway my mind towards keeping him, I think.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I don't think that's as tough a fixture as it sounds. And yeah, you're right. Like if you look at the fixtures after the Liverpool game, Palace away, not easy, but then Spurs at home, West Ham away, Leicester away, Everton at home. They're like the perfect four fixtures, I imagine, for someone like an Mbermo to do really well. So yeah, it's one of those. Like, do you that, and also he'll probably just will do well over these games anyway. Yeah, it's such a
It, it
luxury.
seems it seems like a luxury. It's very similar to when people sold Bruno for Saka a few weeks earlier when Arsenal's fixtures were turning. It is a luxury transfer. But yeah, I mean, if someone has, let's say, three, four free transfers with enough money in the bank, then I think he can go for it. For me, it's relatively trickier because I only have to, and then I'll have to sell Mbeumo to Bruno, and then I'll have to sell Saliba to someone I don't know who to go for. I mean,
Yeah,
I would have definitely bought Munoz had the Newcastle result not happened. But I think just to clarify, because Newcastle have beaten Arsenal in 2-0 in the cup, and like they're looking like
away as
favorites to
well.
progress to the next round. Exactly, because Newcastle looking favorites to progress to the next round of fixtures, especially if they win the second round, the second leg, sorry, then that would mean that Newcastle and Palace would both blank in 29 because Newcastle is scheduled to play them in 29. So that's why I'm a bit unsure on buying assets from those two teams, even though Palace have Leicester this week. And I'm sort of jealous of people who already own Munoz because I generally think that Hall is around the corner with his underlying data and statistics, but I don't think I can get there because I don't want to load up on people who might not play at that point.
Let's talk a little bit more about some other midfielders that you don't have. But again, yeah, I feel like there might be a little bit of a swing this week in terms of just potential upside with a player like a Bruno. If you have the likes of a Luis Diaz or an Odegaard or someone like that, maybe a Semenyo, and you've got the money to go up there to a Bruno, do you think it's worth selling those sort of players this week?
I do. I do. I'll speak about them in isolation, but for Bruno, I think there's enough room for upside when you look at United's upcoming fixtures, not just this week, but after this week as well, especially if he's playing in the front three. I mean, those fixtures are gold. Southampton at home, Brighton at home, Fulham away, uh, Crystal Palace at home. I mean, the fixtures are really nice. Semenyo, I think. I mean, I guess a lot of people won't be in the position where they can afford Semenyo to Bruno, but I think Semenyo in his own right is a good player to keep. Bournemouth are actually third for XG this season, and yeah, I mean, despite the injuries to Evan Nilsson, Unal, I'm still expecting their attack to be all right. I just think he's going to be a very good hold for his price in the weeks to come. He's operating at 0.5 XGI per 90. So I think Semenyo is just a very good player to keep at his price. And Odegaard, I also think is fine, to be very honest. I'm expecting Arsenal to score a couple of goals against Spurs, and yes, he will be advanced as well. Uh, it was funny that he missed the penalty, but then he stepped up to take the first penalty in the shootout and scored convincingly. There was a quote by Arteta saying that just shows the guy's confidence. So I'm still expecting him to be on pens. But yeah, I mean, if you're asking Odegaard to Bruno, I think a lot of managers will be considering that transfer. I think it's one I'd make because Odegaard is a good asset, but I think Bruno's a better asset at this point.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do this week, to be honest. I've been disappointed with Odegaard, and yeah, hearing that news, the Dalot suspension, the fact that Bruno is probably going to be in that front three, it's tough not to go there. Yeah, the only real sort of sticking point for me, or the only real sort of nerve that I had in going for Bruno was that he might be deeper, and obviously he's not as good of an asset there. I mean, I'm sure he'd still probably do well in a couple of these fixtures, but yeah, if he's going to be higher up the pitch, I do think he is a key player to target. And then finally, let's round things off with your forwards. Isak, we've spoken about him. And then Jimenez did so well for you last week. And then João Pedro as well, still flagged. So what's going on there?
I mean, he twisted his ankle in training. He then tweeted later that the scan was all right, but I'm not sure whether we're going to even get a Brighton press conference before the game week deadline because Brighton are playing on Thursday. But in the absence of any other further information, unless he's ruled out for a few weeks or something, I think he's someone that's worth holding. I just think he offers great value for his price. He's a penalty taker. He's the main talisman of the team. So if you have someone like a Rogers or Menu rotate well with him, I think I would keep him. And that's my plan as well. I mean, I'm going to play Rogers this week over him.
Okay.
Actually, I'll play João Pedro unless he's ruled out, but
Yeah.
I have Rogers coming in for him if he misses out. Yeah, just to clarify. Raul, I am very happy with. I kept faith with him for a long, long time, and he's finally delivered. He's on penalties as well. Um, so I'm expecting him to be a fine hold for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I still miss owning Tom Solanke. I'll tell you that. I mean,
Really?
he's someone I do. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
he's one of the forwards I like owning because of his nailedness and because of the fact that Spurs are an attacking team. But yeah, the next couple of fixtures aren't exactly great, and I think I might be eyeing Solanke back in Gameweek 23 when Spurs are scheduled to play Leicester at home. I think that's a fixture I want him for. But that's for later. And then Isak is fine, obviously, to keep. So overall, I'm sort of content with the team. I wish I had a few more free transfers, but yeah, it is what it is.
Well, looking at your AI recommended transfers this week from Fantasy Football Hub, the recommendation is to make no transfer this game week and to roll, which is exactly what you said. And makes sense. Yeah, I do agree. I think your team looks good. I mean, I don't know why you'd make any moves. I feel like it's one of those where sometimes a move looks all right on paper, but actually, in reality, do you want to sell in Burma before City at home when Brentford's attack at home is still really good. He looks great. Just had an unbelievable game. City look really porous. And then do you want to sell Saliba Tottenham at home in a game where it's probably going to be Arsenal probably going to try and keep it pretty tight, knowing their offensive frailties? I don't think so. I don't know if there's much upside there in going for someone like a Munoz, especially given what you said about 29.
Yeah, I mean, if I buy a defender, it won't be Munoz, it won't be Hall, it will probably be Mazraoui because United have a
Oh,
good
okay.
fixture this week and he's going to play left wing back and then he's also going to play in Game 29. I'm not going to buy a Munoz
Right,
or
okay.
so yeah, Mazraoui is the one I'm considering actually. Saliba to Mazraoui. I would actually want Konate, but again, as mentioned earlier, I want to leave that third Liverpool slot till closer to that double whenever it comes. So I won't
Yeah.
buy Konate this week, especially that he's just coming back from injury. I want to see him for a couple of weeks. So if I buy a defender this week, it will probably be Mazraoui.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that's worth it then, just to make a transfer on that position, then do another one in a couple of game weeks' time.
No, I mean, in that scenario, I'd probably sell Colwell later
Okay.
because Mazraoui is found fine to keep till 29. So
Sure. Okay, yeah, good
yeah,
point.
it just comes down to how highly you value Bruno. And honestly, Jag, if I think that Bruno is the best captain, I think I will probably make the transfer.
Wow.
But if I don't, then I'll just captain Palmer and yeah, just probably take the L on Bruno. I just think the fact that Mbomo's gotten that 19 pointer is making it really hard to make that transfer because had he gotten like anything less than double digits, and I think it would have been a transfer a lot of people would have been considering with the let's say a lot more seriousness as compared to right now.
That's definitely true. And I do think that is a definitely something that we probably do too much, is looking at last game week's points and saying, okay, he did really well there, therefore we've got to keep him. Doesn't necessarily work like that. Although I do think that City game is actually pretty good for him. Just looking at their last two games defensively,
He's
as
going to
you've
be playing
said.
in the front too. Yeah,
Exactly,
he's
and we
going
know
to
how
play
good
up
he is in the
front.
front too compared to when he's out wide. Like, that was the problem with him earlier in the season. I don't know. I don't think it's worth two transfers. If you could go there for free, yeah, I know you'd probably do it, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth two
I would.
transfers.
I would 100% do it for free.
Yeah,
I don't think I can bring myself to do it with two frees because if the transfer backfires, and even let's say even if Mbomo matches Bruno, I think I will hate myself next week for not having three free transfers as opposed to just having one
yeah.
because having the luxury of multiple free transfers in the next few weeks will be massive. It will be huge.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Just your general plan for the next few weeks. Actually, maybe just the rest of the season, to be honest. Just a little brief discussion at the end of this one. You mentioned 29 is a game week that you're looking to potentially play through, ideally. So what are your thoughts, really, chip strategy right now, and how much is that affecting your decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I say that because when you look at the way the fixtures are panning out, having let's say not Newcastle and Crystal Palace are likely to blank as of now. And there will be a few other teams. It looks like Arsenal and Chelsea will probably go ahead. That's critical. And a lot of people have, I have double Arsenal defense. I have Palmer. I have Colwell. And in that position, if that fixture is going ahead, that game week becomes very manageable. Why I am not looking to play the game, the free hit in game week 29 is because by the end of game week 29, we won't have a concrete idea about the blanks that are to follow, right?
Okay.
So if you're free hitting in 29, you're basically going blind without having a full picture. That's why I want to play the free hit when I'm in a position to know about the blanks and the doubles and all that, right? So that's one of the reasons why I want to sort of stack up on the transfers. Currently, I'm looking at, let's say if the Liverpool double lands in 24, 25, I'm looking at using the triple captaincy chip then on Salah. And then the assistant manager can happen later on in the season, depending on where the teams are at and table bonuses and all those that kind of stuff. But for me to be in that position, I need to have chips saved. I need to have transfer saved. I need to be flexible. So yeah, I want to prioritize long-term gains basically over short-term thinking.
Okay, there we go. Good stuff. That's going to do it for this one. Guys, thank you very much, as always, for watching and listening. Bakar, thank you for your tips and advice.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I'm very worried, to be honest, that this game week is going to be the one where you overtake me. And from there, it's going to be hard to get you back. Your team's looking well set up. I'm going to make two transfers,
Bruno,
I think.
Smash it, mate.
No, I'm going to make two transfers, so I'm going to be two transfers behind you next week as well, I think, which is going to be important. But yeah, there we go. We will see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.